Good evening and welcome to Woodward. We're very happy that you are joining us today for this engaging session on wellness, Student Wellness Collaborative Forum. Hi, my name is Kathy Wade. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Learning Through Art Incorporated, the lead agency at Dater Montessori and Gamble Montessori, as well as a partner here with Cincinnati Public Schools. Tonight, the purpose of our event is the Wellness Forum is to equip, engage, and empower our students and families and the community through sharing pertinent information that impacts our health. Tonight, we are focused on the health of our young people. I'm so happy to see so many of you here. We'd like to begin by introducing you to our interim superintendent. Cincinnati Public Schools is dedicated to building out strategies that keep focus on the well-being of the students. Please help me in welcoming the leader with this charge, Interim Superintendent Tiane Amat.
Thanks, Kathy. We are so grateful for your partnership with CPS and everything that you do. And to our audience, whether you're here in person or watching through Facebook, thank you for joining us for our very first CPS Wellness Summit. We are so glad to have you here this evening. We are going to start our Wellness Summit by getting an update on COVID-19 and then spend the majority of the time talking about teen drug and alcohol prevention. I know there's a lot of great information that you are in store for. Our speakers, our partners are all going to make us smarter on these topics. So I would say to you, first, wellness is important. And so before I turn it over to our partners, I want to talk a little bit about what CPS has done to ensure health and safety in our school district. It's one of our 5 areas in our strategic plan. The first thing that we did was make sure that all of our schools have social workers. And thanks to our partnership with Cincinnati Health Department, we also have nurses in all of our schools. And as you can imagine, during this time, during the pandemic, we heavily relied on the expertise of our nurses in the Cincinnati Health Department. Our commitment to health does not stop there. CPS has school-based health centers, which are the cornerstones of our neighborhoods, providing much services, including medical, dental, vision, and mental health. We also have a multitude of partners, including those here this evening, who help us make sure that health and wellness is built into our student school day as an integral part of our community. Health has been especially a big focus for CPS during this pandemic. We have utilized safety protocols recommended by the CDC, and also our Board of Education passed a policy on vaccination with a 99% compliance rate. We are so grateful to our staff and their commitment to keeping our schools safe, keeping our programming in person. For opportunities for patients, and the next clinic will be held on December 10th at Mount Airy School for anyone 5 years of age and older. More information can be found on our website. And now I'm so honored to turn it over to our partners and thank them in advance for their time and expertise. Please give a big round of applause to the Cincinnati H.O.P.E Coalition, Exclusive Services, and the Community Anti-Drug Coalition of America. Thank you so much and enjoy the summit.
Thank you so much for that. Now, the next voice you're going to hear from will be Ms. Ashley Young from the Urban League to briefly share some information around COVID, followed by Dr. Joy Sweeney with the Community Anti-Drug Coalition of America, who will introduce our main speaker for this evening.
Here we go. All right. So good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be here, and good evening to all of you all that are joining us virtually. As mentioned, my name is Ashley Young. I work at the Urban League of Greater Southwestern Ohio as Vice President of Policy and Strategic Initiatives, and I lead our COVID-19 efforts. So I know that everyone is tired of hearing about COVID. It has been 2 years. And I really wish that, I didn't have to be up here providing an update as it relates to COVID-19. But we are very much so still within a pandemic. So here recently, we've seen increases in hospitalizations and also increases in people getting COVID-19. And so I'm here today with the Urban League. We've just really tried to make sure that we are keeping the community informed and engaged during COVID-19, whether that's sharing out information or also we host a vaccination site and a testing site. So we host our vaccination site every Sunday from 11 to 2 p.m. at the Urban League, located at 3458 Reading Avenue. And then we also have our testing site every Friday from 1 to 5, and it's free testing at the Urban League. And so those are very important things as we think about what it is that's going to make us safe. As a community as a whole, we are trying to make sure that we get folks vaccinated, but we're seeing disparities in vaccination rates. So currently in Hamilton County, let's have people guess what percentage of Black people do you think are vaccinated within Hamilton County? It might be a prize involved. It might not be a prize. Anybody want to guess? Go ahead. You said 15? Okay, 15%. 30% that are vaccinated. Yep, and are vaccinated means fully, I'm going to say fully vaccinated, that they received 2 vaccines. What'd you say? 28 or 27%? Between 8 or 7%? 25? So we currently have about 36% of Black people that are vaccinated. So some of you guys were close. Some of you were doing better than what you said, but it's still not good enough. And so it's really important that we all make sure that we are equipped with accurate information and we're making informed decisions. At the Urban League, we're asking people to really kind of take a pledge. And the pledge is really to make sure that you get educated about the COVID-19 vaccine. There's a community resource at covid19resources.com where you can find out more information. We're asking people to really wear a mask too, because that's another way that we can all stay safe. We're asking people to get tested if you feel sick or if you're returning from an area where you've been around a lot of people. And also, we're just asking people to do all of these things and make sure that you're getting information. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have a safe and healthy community and we can get back to some type of normalcy, whatever that new normal is. And the only way that we can do that is if we do the things that I just talked about. So hopefully you all have been vaccinated or you're getting information, but I definitely want to make sure that we're having these conversations. Also, if you check out our Facebook page at ULGSO, we recently had a conversation with pediatricians around the vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds. So thank you so much for listening today, and I just encourage everyone to make sure that you are informed and educated as it relates to COVID-19. Have a great evening.
And now we'll hear from Dr. Joy Sweeney.
Hello. Oh, larger than life up here, I guess. Welcome and thank you all so much for allowing CADCA, Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, to be here this evening to join you and to present a little bit of information on some new substances a significant new market that's emerging in our communities. I am the Deputy Director of Training, Technical Assistance, and Community Outreach here at CADCA. And anytime you need our help or our support, we are here to support you and your coalition's efforts in addressing challenges in your community related to substance misuse, especially among youth. And that is one of the things that we try to do as Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, or CADCA, is support coalitions that are trying to help bring various entities, the business, the school, the health departments, all of those entities together to help provide a well, healthy environment and live drug-free, allows youth to live and emerge drug-free. I do have the pleasure this evening of introducing Christina Clark, who is the president and founder of KM Clark Consulting Group, a consulting company that's dedicated to developing and sustaining nonprofits. Christina Clark served as the executive director of the Coffee County Anti-Drug Coalition from 2007 through 2016, and she's dedicated herself to nonprofit work since graduating from Middle Tennessee State University in 2006 with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a minor in Mental Health Services and Sociology. Before serving as the coalition director, Christina held positions as a domestic violence court advocate and a home counselor for at-risk youth. In 2012, she earned her certification, her Certified Prevention Specialist 2 certification, and now trains on the national level as a trainer with CADCA as for our National Coalition Academy. She also trains nationally in the prevention of alcohol and drug misuse, as well as nonprofit management and capacity building, or bringing more people to the table to solve the problems within our community. Christina was raised throughout the United States as a proud Air Force brat, and she now makes her home in Tennessee with her husband and best friend, Michael Clark, along with their black lab, Sammy, and their sons, Michael Joseph and Julian William. And so without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce my counterpart today, representing CADCA, Ms. Christina Clark. So Christina, take it away.
Thank you so much, Joy, and thank you everyone for allowing us to be here today. It's such an honor and privilege to have this time with you to discuss this very important topic. And that was a mouthful, Joy. Thank you so much. And as she said, yes, I'm from now the great state of Tennessee and have worked with coalitions now for the last 15 years. And it doesn't get any better than the people in this room that are right there watching us, or if you're on Facebook. You guys really are the ones who make a difference, and you can make a change in the way youth are using substances and the way families are coming together. And so I'm excited to talk about this topic and how you can really make a difference today around Delta 8 and what we're seeing. So if you give me a moment, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. So we're here today to talk about Delta 8, or also known as weed light. And we're going to talk more about what I mean by that and how that has become a huge marketing strategy for the people pushing this on our young people in our communities across the United States. So what are we trying to get out of today? What are we talking about as we sit in our family rooms? If you're on Facebook, you're there in the cafeteria live with us. We want to talk about Delta 8, as I said. What is it? What's the chemical makeup? What are the effects we're seeing on young people or whoever's using it bodies as they're using Delta 8? What are the wide variety of products available and how are they being ingested? And then how can we make a difference? How can we get everyone around our table in our communities to change what we're seeing and the impact this emerging trend is having on the communities in which we're serving and the young people in which we're working with? So there's a lot of questions out there around Delta 8 that we're going to talk about today. And I absolutely love that most of the question marks that you're seeing right now on this slide are gray, because a lot of what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is that gray area of Delta 8 and what we commonly refer to as marijuana, or Delta 9, that we're used to talking about more frequently. There's a lot of gray area there. And if hopefully I can get a video clip to play with this platform, you also see that what I will call loophole, someone else might call compliance. And that we're seeing there's a lot of people taking a loophole effect to whether or not Delta 8 is legal and allowed to be in our communities. And so we're going to be talking about that and all the questions that are coming up around this topic of Delta 8 or weed light. What are some of those questions that I'm talking about? What is Delta 8, which we're going to cover? Is it legal? One of the gray areas we'll be talking about tonight. Which states have banned it? Who regulates it? Why is it so popular? How easy is it to get? And what is the difference between Delta 8 and marijuana? So these are ones you've probably seen flying around a lot as you've seen this popping up in stores around your area. So the first question is, what is Delta 8? And so Delta 8 is derived from the hemp plant, which can be legally grown in most states. We're going to discuss in a few slides what that means and when that happened. But really, we're just talking about the hemp plant right now, and that Delta 8 comes from that. And through synthesis, Delta 8 is extracted from the hemp plant, and Delta 8 does contain THC, which is the main psychoactive ingredient in marijuana, or Delta 9, which you've more commonly seen people talking about for years now. So Delta 9 is what we mean when we say that. It's like marijuana. I hate using the term normal marijuana, but when we're talking about marijuana, generally what we're used to seeing is medical or medicinal marijuana. We're talking about people being arrested for marijuana. It falls into that Delta 9 category. Delta 8 is the one we're talking about tonight, which is seen as being more legal, quote unquote, in that gray area, but it does contain THC, which is the main psychoactive in Delta 9. So as I mentioned, Delta 8 is not found in significant amounts in cannabis plants. Therefore, concentrated amounts of Delta 8 THC are typically manufactured with potentially harmful chemicals from hemp-derived CBD. So what do I mean by this? I mean that in your normal hemp plant, you will find Delta 8, and in that Delta 8 there is THC, but not huge amounts of it. And so to be able to have any type of psychoactive effect, they're going to have to do some type of synthetic processing to it in order to bring out the amount that would have a psychoactive effect on your body. And so though we hear about Delta 8 being really natural and something coming right from the plant, really the Delta 8 we're seeing on the market has been synthesized to have the effect that we're seeing with the added amount of THC. Delta 8 is estimated to be about 50 to 75% as psychoactive as Delta 9 THC, which again, Delta 9 is that marijuana that you've heard about for years. This is where that AKA, also known as weed light, comes into play. And this is very important. And one of the things, as I've been pulling research from our state, Tennessee, or working with the great Dorothy Cheney, another master CADCA trainer in Wisconsin, or just looking even in Florida and California, one thing I've seen over and over again in every news article I've pulled is they call it weed light. And that isn't an accident. That is a marketing strategy that we're seeing, that they're purposely coming after our communities, telling us this is safer by calling it weed light. And it doesn't matter if you're talking to a discount tobacco retailer in Tennessee or a spa in Florida, they're calling it weed light. And that's not an accident. That's a perfect marketing push done by these people to make sure we're getting it in here, getting it into our communities and thinking that it's less harmful, when really there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And the way they came up with weed light, being very serious with you, is they looked at the alcohol industry, things at Budweiser and Bud Light, and so that's how they're marketing this, as this lighter weed. CBD can be synthetically converted into Delta 8 THC, as well as Delta 9 THC and other isomers. So again, I know this is a lot of information, but what we're talking about is that you can take CBD that we see in creams that has been legalized, that you see you could take in pill form or on creams, but then they take it through another process to pull out this Delta 8 with a higher amounts of THC. And the important point on this slide is that according to the Center for Disease Control, this conversion process used to produce this in some of the marketed products may create harmful byproducts that are not presently are not well characterized. So what does this mean is that nothing's labeled. Everything that we're seeing on our store shelves right now is not being regulated at all. We don't know what's in it. And that's one of the really scary things. In Tennessee, if you've never been here, we have the Great Smoky Mountains, and we have Gatlinburg, one of the places that people bring their kids. We have Dollywood, all the great stuff. Someone sent me a picture one day of what looked like a medicinal marijuana pharmacy right on that main drag and said, I didn't know Tennessee legalized marijuana. And I immediately contacted the Prevention of Lines of Tennessee, who we work with, and we looked at it and we're like, what is going on? And it was Delta 8 being sold just like what a medical marijuana lab would look like, with full weed buds, But what's important to note is what we just learned here is that just pulling that cannabis or hemp, that hemp plant, and saying that's Delta 8, there wouldn't be enough to be able to sell that as a psychoactive substance that someone would want to give to have any type of effect on their body. What they're doing is taking that plant, that leaf, that bud, and they're spraying it with a synthetic compound that the CDC is talking about here. So we don't know what we're getting. We don't know how they're using to process that, and we don't know any other of the chemicals involved in this. And this is where it gets really scary, because it's completely unregulated and unmarked, and we really don't know what we're getting or what our children are getting as we're looking into Delta 8. So where did this all change? You know, we went to talking about marijuana generally to now we have all these different pockets and categories. When we're talking about hemp and cannabis and marijuana, there's all these words floating around. Well, the real change came in the 2018 Farm Bill, where we legalized hemp production. With this, the 0.3% THC limit was mandated. And so the limit for Delta 9, again, that marijuana we talked about for years, is 0.3%. Hemp is defined as cannabis sativa plant that contains 0.3% Delta 9 THC or less. Again, we're looking at Delta 9 still, not the Delta 8. And a plant that contains higher than that, higher than the 0.3%, is illegal and falls under the Drug Enforcement Administration. This is where it gets the gray area, y'all. Is because Delta 8 THC is manufactured for hemp-derived CBD, when it's going through that process like I talked about, that's considered still under the Drug Enforcement Administration as illegal. But because Delta 8 is legal in just its normal form without being synthesized, that's where the gray area is. And you'll see in that video that there's some people running with it saying we have compliance, so we can run forward, it doesn't matter, Delta 8 is legal, and you have other people saying, wait, until there's clarification on this, I'm not going to move forward. But right here's where we found that gray area of like, technically Delta 8 is legal, but once you go through that synthesis process of making it even higher psychoactive properties is when it gets in that area of now you're falling into an illegal area. But is Delta 8 legal? Well, currently illegal or restricted in some states, and these are some of them that are out there. What's important about this is that we can make a difference in a movement when it comes to policy change around this issue. It's not done. It's not that it's legal, it's on our street, so we don't have to do anything about it. We really can. We're seeing it from Alaska to Washington, states really working, and even Connecticut, I think, is the most recent state to pass it. We can do something about this. We can restrict where it's at. We can restrict whether or not it's being sold. We can say how close it can be to school systems if it is going to be legal. We have ways that we can change the way this is happening in our communities instead of just the onslaught of seeing it everywhere in every tobacco retailer or spa. We can really do something about this. And these states are providing us that framework, that format of who we can talk to, see how we can do it in our state to protect our young people and our families. So is Delta 8 available in Ohio? There's a hemp product that gets users high, and it is available all over Ohio. And I'm going to see now if I can play this video for y'all.
Blurring the line between hemp and marijuana.
There's a new product available in stores right now called Delta 8 THC. Don't need any special prescription or card to buy it, even though it can get you high.
In this News 5 original, Kevin Berry explains why it is causing headaches for regulators.
Down the street from the neighborhood coffee and sandwich shops.
Stays very long.
Becky Reynolds, your CBD store, has a sign that turns a lot of heads.
Letters that stick out to people are THC.
Delta 9 THC is the compound in illegal marijuana that gets you high. That's why people are noticing. Because in Ohio, you can only legally buy it if you're a medical marijuana patient and get it from a state-regulated dispensary. But Becky is selling Delta 8 THC, which is different because it's made from a hemp plant, which doesn't have enough Delta 9 to have those same psychoactive effects. But when hemp is processed into Delta 8, it gets close.
It might affect you differently than it affects me. Are you an avid THC user? I'm not, so it affects me.
Delta 8 is intoxicating. Maybe not as potent as Delta 9, but it is still an intoxicating compound, or can be an intoxicating compound.
Lawyer Tom Heron represents a lot of companies in the cannabis industry, which means he fields a lot of questions from clients about what's legal. His position is that since Delta 8 comes from hemp, It was legalized under the 2018 Farm Bill, even if it gets you high.
And so now you have this framework where the same plant is regulated different ways by different agencies.
While some states have banned Delta 8, Ohio has not. So business owners like Becky and Meredith Farrow at Clean Remedies are in the clear, at least for now.
This is where we manufacture, blend, and create all of our products. Everything's made in-house.
Clean Remedies is a hemp processor making and selling CBD gummies, topicals, and tinctures. And since March, it's been selling products with Delta 8 after Meredith and her husband Darren did their own research.
But we sat on the sidelines for a long time.
Meanwhile, people called their office asking for Delta 8 and searched their website for it.
We decided, let's do this, but let's do it at a much lower milligram level than some of these other companies and take the more medicinal approach.
Meredith says that means making these gummies or tinctures with a small amount of Delta 8, not enough THC in them to get anybody stoned. Mimi May owns another hemp processing company, Maeve's All Natural, and she's experimenting with a similar type of product. But she's still on the sidelines, waiting for clear guidance from federal and state authorities.
Once I give the go-ahead, we're ready to produce and sell it. But unless I am more certain that it's not so much in the legal gray area, I wouldn't release it.
The fear is that new rules from the FDA or Justice Department could make all of these companies have to stop selling their Delta 8 products because they would conflict with a rule that doesn't exist yet. For now, it does seem like it might be a way for somebody to get high without breaking the law.
My joke is always, what some people call loopholes, I call compliant businesses, right? Because if it's compliant with the rules, it's not a loophole.
And whether a Delta 8 high is the same as Delta 9 really depends on who you talk to. But everybody agrees the agencies in charge of making sure the stuff we eat or put in our bodies is safe aren't running those tests on these hemp products. That's why Meredith and Becky both say consumers need to be careful about where they buy from. All of their products have QR codes that bring customers to lab results, showing what's actually in these boxes. Products from other places may not go that far.
There is absolutely a risk that somebody will ruin it for the rest of the industry, but that's been a reality of the cannabis industry generally, from the time we had regulated markets.
So in an unexpected twist, many hemp companies say they'd actually welcome more regulation, which they hope would push bad actors out of the market and make rules more uniform, like the minimum age to buy. In Becky's store, hemp products are available to anybody older than 18, but it's store policy that Delta 8 and CBD vapes keeping away from high school.
As far as, youngsters getting into it, they're going to have to wait till they're 21.
In Lakewood, I'm Kevin Barry, News 5.
So, as I mentioned, gray area there, everyone. As the lawyer there said, what some people see as compliance, I, as a preventionist, see this as a loophole in which people are being allowed to market and make money selling something to our youth. And yes, some are trying to be responsible and finding the best way in which to do this, but the truth is we don't have enough policy and rules around this, and this is where community members step in to help out to make sure that we keep it out of the hands of our young people and and affecting our families. This is where I just want to say, this is truly about marketing, as I mentioned before, and the weed light being there and saying that, no, it's okay, and it's at health spas, but it's also at discount tobacco, and there's all these conflicting messages, but the messages is still there is that it's legal and more healthful or healthy than something else in terms of use and something that we put into our bodies, and that's not really true, and it's our job as people involved in coalitions or working in the field of wellness to make sure that we're providing marketing that says back, what is in your products, what are our young people and our families using, and how can we make sure they have the best information, just like you guys were talking about when we started this with COVID-19 and making sure people have the right information in their hands. We need to do that for substances like Delta 8. Make sure they realize what they're getting, that we're providing that counter marketing to what they're telling people, because they're working together on this. You see, weed light is being said throughout the United States, and there's a reason for that. And we need to make sure that preventionists, people like I said, from Alaska to Washington, who are already making this illegal, from Ohio, that we're saying the same words about what's in Delta 8 and why we don't want it to affect our families.
Blurring the line between.
Sorry. So, is Delta 8 easy to find in your area? A little snapshot for y'all. So a quick Google search of Delta 8 shops in Cincinnati. All of your red little dots right there are places that are listing it as something they offer in their stores. So Delta 8. What I think is interesting, and what you saw in that clip, that I already mentioned, is that you see everything from health and wellness stores, like in my area, for instance, a local spa that does massages and has like float tanks, offers it, all the way to your local discount tobacco places, mini marts, Exxon stations, depending on your area, all have versions of Delta 8 on the market. So is it readily available? As you can see here, yes, it absolutely is. And it's probably even more available to this. Again, this is just the people who are citing it as one of the things they offer in currently. We also know, if you do a little Google search of fun, that online availability promotion is already out there. As I mentioned, there is marketing campaigns out there that really make sure people that are the influencers are pushing it. Here you see, which is really concerning for me, that first picture. It says, trying Delta 8 with my dad. Does Delta 8 legal, the THC, get you high? Again, see right there, it's calling it the legal THC, even though we know from what we just talked about, does fall in a very gray area. Delta 8 legal THC review, trying Delta 8 cart. We're seeing this pop up where it's being pushed by influencers, it's being pushed by online retailers. It's something you can get and is a legal THC to get you high. I wanted to show some pictures, and I think it was funny right before we started this presentation, before everyone was let into the room, so to speak, we were talking about what the young people in the area were saying, and one of the things was, I wish they were marketing, and a lot of people say, we're not marketing it to you. But I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time. Right here, seeing Delta 8 gummies. Again, these are saying they have that many milligrams, but there's nothing proving that there's exactly 300 milligrams. Similar to when we saw vape products come on the market before they were regulated, and some had this, said they had this much nicotine, but actually had less or way more. Very similar when we're talking about the Delta 8. Again, all in gummy form, very much marketed to our youth. Here again, when you see it to your left here, looks like bud. It looks like what our typical Delta 9 marijuana plant would look like. And as I mentioned to you, 8 is not in high quantities in that form. So for this to have any type of psychoactive effect, it must have been sprayed with that synthesized CBD-related THC Delta 8. So even though it looks like you're getting this natural bud form, the odds are this has been sprayed with a synthetic chemical. Same thing with the joints, if you're right. Again, not marketing to youth, but here's your D8 mango lollipop, as well as strawberry cough drops. They have Delta 8 in them. Also, as the lady from the spa mentioned, it is also available in cartridge form to put into your vapes. So another way for anyone to hide what they're using in a vape device, and this is Delta 8 cartridges. Again, available in all different types of flavors as well as different strengths, as we'll be talking about in a minute. So there's two types of Delta 8. Sativa, which you will experience more of a head high, they say, uplifting and euphoric feelings that boost your creative juices, promotes energy and alertness, and is best used during the daytime. Indica, you will experience more of a body high, stimulates that traditional munchies we think of when we think of Delta 9, and then it promotes relaxation, sedative-like characteristics, and it's best used during nighttime. Also known as indica couch because you will be tired. One of the other videos that I've watched on this, even when people are going in to buy this, they're doing purchasing surveys, which we'll talk about in a minute. They were having retailers, some of them just at your normal, like I said, package store, tobacco retailer, telling people which ones they should use it for. Oh, you have anxiety, you want this one. Oh, here's the NyQuil versus the DayQuil version of this. So not only are we selling substances that we don't know what's in them that are having these psychoactive effects on us, but then on top of it, we have people who really don't know all the ingredients in them, selling them as health and wellness products for things like anxiety, depression, and sleeplessness. And this is where we're coming into a really bad area where not just youth, but our adults are getting their hands on something that they think might be helping them, but actually could have really significant effects on their health later on. So Dr. Joy Sweeney is going to help me out a little here. I'd love to hear from anyone in the room who have you seen an increase in Delta 8 advertising and outlets selling products in your area? I'd love to hear from you and what you've seen after seeing some of the slides I've shown on what I've seen.
I'm not getting any comments in the chat box, but if I do, I will definitely let you know.
Thank you so much. So as we're waiting for those, where do we go? For all of you joining us today, where do we begin to move into action? How can we change what we're seeing as this rock rolling down this hill right now? How do we change it? How do we make it better in our communities? Because it takes every one of us. And that's what makes Coalition so incredible and so impactful, is that there are all these different partners, all these different people at the table who can really help us move to action. So first things first is we need to know what's happening in your area. We need to know what the scope is and how the use looks like, so we know best policies and practices to put into place. And so first things first, and this is what we've asked people in Tennessee to start doing as well, is an environmental scan. Let's get boots on the ground. Let's get our young people, our parents, anyone who wants to work with us on this effort into these establishments and look, what's being sold? At what milligrams? What are they telling people about it? Is it being sold in gummy form where it's at a lower eye level, so it's obviously being marketed to youth? What do those advertisements even look like? What are they saying? We need to see what the whole world looks like in our area to make sure that we can put the best policy practices in place. We need to make sure we're touching base with our key stakeholders. Talk to law enforcement officers, student resource officers, treatment district attorneys. Ask them what they are seeing when it comes to Delta 8 in the community. We started doing this in Tennessee. It was amazing. At first, people were like, I don't know if we're seeing much. And then immediate law enforcement were like, no, we took someone to the hospital and they were on Delta 8. That's what we found on them. Or the DEA saying, no, we've seen an uptick in this, and it's definitely because Delta 8 was involved. We need to start having these discussions. What are you seeing? This is where the work of emerging trends really happens and where coalitions can have a huge impact. We saw it when it first started with the opioid epidemic. If we can get in early and ask these questions, we can start making a change in our communities to keep it out and regulate it. 100 cups of coffee is simply, again, making sure we're talking to people, talking to all of our partners, each one of us saying, whether you want to call it 100 cups of coffee or 100 handshakes, that we're going to go out and as a coalition member, as a parent, I'm going to go out and I'm going to talk to another parent. I'm going to sit down when I go see my doctor or my dentist and be like, have you heard about this? What have you seen? When I go to my church, I'm going to talk about it and ask them, really starting to engage people in this conversation. Like I said, part of our job is to market the difference we're seeing, to make sure that we're saying another message than what's being heard so loudly around Delta 8. And it starts with us having conversations with people in our community. Of course, we need to make sure we're doing focus groups, making sure we're involving youth, having conversations with them, seeing what they're seeing, which I know already happened before this event, a conversation around what our youth are seeing around Delta 8. And then finally, starting to do purchase surveys. And this is very similar to compliance checks, using someone who looks younger than 21 but is 21 to go into stores and to see if they can purchase, what it's being sold for, if they're being carded, to try to get an understanding and lay of the land. With it, is it being regulated at all? Are policies being utilized if they are in place? And if not, okay, then let's put these in place. So if it is going to be legal, we can make sure it stays out of the hands of our young people. So again, what can you do? Well, you're already starting it. Talk about Delta 8. As I mentioned, talk about it at coalition meetings. Go to your next meetings that you have tomorrow if you're involved in Kiwanis. If you're going to a Bible study, whatever you are, this is your job to make sure we're spreading the message about why this is dangerous and what we can do to change it. Get involved in that community assessment piece, as I mentioned. Do the work of the environmental scans, those key informant interviews, the focus groups, so we can see what it looks like in your area and figure out a great strategy for combating it. Make sure you're engaging the key partners, law enforcement at the table, the district attorney, healthcare workers, anyone who's seeing and being impacted by this, our youth, the schools, to make sure they're part of the plan. That we're connecting with other coalitions in the state. You guys are not alone in this being an issue in your community. It's across Ohio. It's across the United States. As I mentioned, in those states that have already made it illegal, this is our time to join together to make sure we can have real impact. Let's learn from the other states who have done this, other coalitions that are partners and how they've done it. This is our time to work together to see what we can do across the United States to change this. Work on that online environmental scan. Make sure that you're doing outlet density screenings. How many do you have in the area? Are they by schools? Are they by libraries? Are they by churches? Think about where they're being placed, and if you can't make it illegal, can we do something about where they're being placed and where they're allowed to be in our community? Again, I can't stress those purchase surveys enough as a way for people to see that it is being sold to our young people. And then, of course, advocate for clarification in the law. What's really hard right now is there is so much of a gray area. So we need to make sure, as they said at the end of the video, they welcome more policy and regulation because there is none. So let's give it to them, and let's do it on our terms as people in prevention who want wellness for our students and our community members. Let's put it in place. Let's get it done so we can see a change in access to our young people so that we can really be on the road to health and wellness like we want to see. So, as I mentioned, this is the time to connect with other coalitions. And CADCA is the best place to do that, right? You brought us here today. If there's a coalition working on this, CADCA can connect you to it. There's a state, what they've done. Reach out to CADCA, let them know what you're doing so we can get you connected to the right people. That's why they're here, to really see how we can help community coalitions do what they need to do and do it well. And so whatever you guys need, we are only an email or a shout out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram away from anything you need as you work towards changing the landscape around Delta 8 in your community. And with that, thank you so much. I know there's going to be a panel and there's probably also questions. Again, my name is Christina Clark. Feel free to also email me with any questions or concerns, and I can always get you in contact with Dr. Joy Sweeney as well. I really appreciate being here today on this very important topic, and it's an honor and a privilege, and I look forward to continuing to serve you on the panel next.
Big round of applause for Ms. Clark. Christina Clark, thank you so much, from the Community Anti-Drug Coalition of America. Well, now we would like to move into our open discussion with our panelists. For those of you who are joining us at home, please feel free to put your questions into Facebook, and we will read them back so that we can have our panelists give their responses. We're also going to have them seated here and pass a mic down so that you can hear everyone speak. As they gather, I'm going to introduce them. Once again, Ms. Christina Clark will be joining us on the panel. Dr. Benedict Njoku, better known as Dr. Ben, from the Cincinnati for Hope Coalition and Exclusive Services. We have Ms. LaRonda Thomas, CPS Parent Champion. Mr. Abdul Mohammed from Exclusive Services, and Ms. Beth Jones, who is a community parent. Did I get everybody? Okay, thank you. I'm going to get us started. First and foremost, does anybody have any questions in the audience here with us? Okay, well, you can give that some thought. I'm going to give you a couple of questions that we pulled together, and feel free, anyone in the audience, to jump in. So this is for Ms. Thomas and Ms. Jones. You're both representing parents on this panel. What are your thoughts around the information that was shared this evening, and how do you plan to address this topic with your youth?
Thank you, Ms. Wade. Yes, as a parent, the first thing that I would say is this information was very impactful, very enlightening, and very informative. I wasn't aware of the difference in regards to the THC and the various packaging, so that brought some special attention to me. I think the way that I would execute conversations would be to ask questions. I have teenagers, 17, a student that would definitely be exposed to this variant in college. So I would inform them, have some dialogue, some questions, asking them about it. Have they experienced it? Have they seen it? Do they know friends that have that have experienced it as well? That have experienced it as well. Also, I would empower them questions in regards to THC and marijuana, because there is a difference, I understand, between the two. So I would definitely start asking questions and get a little personal about it as well. I think that one thing as a parent we have to do is we have to empower our kids to share what they're experiencing and not be afraid to have open dialogue so that they don't feel they're going to be criticized about what's happening or what they're exposed to or what their friends are exposed to, because it's real life. And we can only grow by the information that is shared with us all. One of the other things that I would do with my children would engage. In the way that I engage with my kids when things happen, I relate on their level. So whether it's through a YouTube video, whether it's through music that they listen to, I find the space that they're comfortable in, and then that's how I build dialogue and conversation and education for my children. Thank you.
Thank you. I think those were very, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I learned quite a bit from this presentation, and my children are college age and older, but I still work with a lot of young children, and I was a special ed teacher. And in my role as a caseworker, I'm still involved with a lot of young children. And I think the biggest thing as a parent is to connect, reflect, be present. And if I could stress that anymore, as I reflect back on my time as a parent, be present with your children. Put your own self aside, put your own stress aside, and be present with your children. Like you said, get with them on whatever they're interested in and be there with them. This is not something to fool around with. And when they say that it's a slippery slope, it's a gateway, it is true. It is true. I have a daughter that has gone through rehab, and it was a gateway, and it is true. So talk to each other, talk to your friends, and listen to your parents. They do care, and your teachers do care, and just really invest as a parent, invest in your kids, give them the time and the education. I mean, this information is really, really interesting. It breaks it down by how do you present, at different ages, how do you talk to your kids at different ages? This is really good information. And then, just this brief little handout. I didn't know this information, and I'm involved with a lot of stuff in the community. I work for Warren County Board of DD, so, but my biggest thing is be present with each other, with your friends, with your children. So, yeah.
Thank you. Excellent, excellent. Great advice. Now, there are local resources that we can tap into for support addressing this concern. Dr. Ben, what are some of the ways that the Cincinnati for Hope Coalition is assisting?
Thank you very much for the question. Cincinnati for Hope Coalition, one of our goals is and has always been to increase community collaboration. Community collaboration means, getting everybody together to the table to address whatever issue that we have facing us. And one of the challenges that we have currently is the challenge of the Delta 8 THC, and this is one of the ways that we are utilizing to get the word out to the community by partnering with our community stakeholders like the Cincinnati Public School to be able to get this information out so that the community will know and the community will be able to react in the way the community is reacting. And just beyond triggering our community stakeholders or community partners, we take this to the coalition because, as a coalition, we have sectors. We have the educational sector, we have the law enforcement sector. I can see that Katka talked about having environmental scan. So we trigger all these various arms of our coalition to come to work together to tackle this issue. So this is one of the ways that Cincinnati for Hope Coalition, through exclusive services, of course, is working to address this issue. And I want to tell you that this is the first step in a lot of steps. They said a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. And so our journey of 1,000 miles to tackle this case of Delta 8 THC has started with this step. And hopefully together as a community, we can get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abdul, from a youth perspective, how big of an issue is this in Cincinnati, and what part have you played in prevention conversations with your peers?
Well, it's a pretty big problem in Cincinnati just because I think a lot of kids, especially teenagers, a lot of teenagers, they do have problems with using drugs like weed. So, Delta 8, like the edibles or whatever, they look more appealing. So like, who wouldn't want to use them if you already doing weed, like if you already smoking weed or whatever? And so like, it kind of like, it's like giving candy to a baby for real, because of course they're gonna want to take it, So like, can you say the question again, please?
Sure. From a youth perspective, how big of an issue is this in Cincinnati, and what part have you played in prevention conversations with your peers?
Well, like my colleague Ben said, this is the first step. So like, I can't really say what I have done, but I can say what I plan to do. I plan to have conversations about this. That's why I joined this exclusive services, to have these type of conversations. Yeah, sure. I guess we gotta find out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions in our audience. I'm gonna put the mic. Thank you. And you just want to give us your first name?
My name is Anaya. One of the questions that I have is, what are the things that are being done to prevent these Delta 8 products from getting in the hands of children and kids our age?
Can you please come again? I couldn't hear you well.
The question is, what are things that you are doing to prevent the Delta 8 of being in kids' hands, basically?
So one of the things that we're going to do is environmental scans, compliance checks, because we want to make sure that in places where these things are being sold, that appropriate rules are put in place to ensure that when kids go there, they don't have access to this. We're going to change consequences. We're going to ensure that we remove this. If you were under the age of 21, you will not be able to have access to some of these products. We're going to make sure that our law enforcement are triggered to go to hold accountable the people who sell some of these products in our community, to make sure that they do not sell them to our teenagers. Because I was having a conversation today with a teenager, and the teenager told me, that some of these places, they just go there and they don't check their ID or anything. They just buy these products. So we have to hold them accountable to what they are selling to our kids. And also we have to begin to work as a community to talk about packaging of these products, and also to educate the parents of the kids to read labels. So I could pass you some of the things that we have here, and you may not know what is there. So you just go ahead and just start eating it without looking or reading the labels. So we need to make sure that people begin to read labels and know what they're buying and what is in what they're buying. We need to also make sure that the people selling these things are held accountable, so that people or our youths or our teenagers do not have access to these things. And also we need to make sure that we move these paraphernalia, these things, away from places where normal edible things are, in our provision stores, in our vape shops, in our, gas stations and all that. Because what we have these days is these things are kind of clogged together with the normal things that we buy. So you can just mistakenly reach out for the wrong thing and buy it when you want to go get gas or something like that, especially for parents. So we need to make sure that proper education is on ground for people to ensure that teenagers like you are not doing that. And that is why we are here at Cincinnati for Hope Coalition. And that is why we have, community stakeholders with us. That is why we are calling everybody to the table to ensure that we put our hands together to stop these things from getting across to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kaylee. My question is, what are other ways the word is getting out about these products? What are other ways the word is getting out about these products?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. So just beyond having this forum, we have behind me, we have these informational flyers, that we are disseminating. And please, before you go home today, make sure that you get a copy or 2 or 3 of these so you can pass on to your family, to your friends. So we are putting intentional efforts to producing informational materials like these to disseminate it to the community to make sure that the community gets to know about this. We are putting together advertorials, we're putting together video packaging, PSAs, to talk about this. We are also doing one-on-one conversation, direct conversation, calling people together, talking to community stakeholders, community leaders, to be able to look into the matter. So it is something that we are really working hard, and I am very happy for partnerships like this, like Cincinnati Public School Partnership, who are making sure that this information gets to the teachers, gets to the students, gets to the parents of students to ensure that they understand what is going on and they work hard to kind of address the situation. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all for being here, first of all, this evening. I think this is a very important conversation to have and make sure that our parents are equipped with the knowledge so that we can help our students be successful. So my question, or statement in question, is when I learned about this a couple of months ago, I totally freaked out. I was frantic. I called my kids and I'm like, there's Cheetos in the cabinet, throw them away, da, 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 da. I didn't understand that it was certain packaging and things of that nature. But I imagine myself as a parent freaking out. And I'm just wondering if I can ask Ms. Jones, what would you say is the best way to approach having these conversations with your children so that you don't create a gap where they're not willing to come to you, not willing to speak to you because of overreaction like I did? What would you suggest?
Right. I think it's important that your children understand honesty, that your children understand that you're concerned, that you're worried, that you sit down and you say, I just learned about this. Did you know about this? Have you heard about this? That you're open to them, to your own, that you're not perfect either, that you don't know everything, that like we've always as parents said, like we know it all, but we don't know it all. Yeah, we were teenagers before and we did stupid stuff. Really, we did stupid stuff. But our kids need to know that we did. They don't need to know exactly what we did, but they need to know we did stupid stuff and relate on that level and just be honest and say, I'm concerned. Have you heard about this? I want to learn about this. Do you want to learn about this with me? Are your friends talking about it? And have that conversation with them that way and say, have you seen this in the stores when you've gone to get a pop? Have you, is it in our neighborhood? Just those kind of conversations, just on a general level and start there is what I would do to relate.
Thank you.
Um, my name is Koinu, and I just want to know what can we do as teenagers to help with this, to help this work.
I guess like so- I guess like talking to your friends about it, like making it seem like it's a serious situation because it is. A lot of people they when they think of marijuana, they don't even think of it as a drug. So it's like they kind of like downplaying like the seriousness of like smoking marijuana. So like I guess like if you address the situation like it's serious, then other people are gonna take it as serious as you like say it is. So I guess that's like kind of way.
Hi, my name is Bibi, and my question is, what action would you guys take if you notice that your attempts at making people aware about the Delta 8 to try to stop them isn't working?
I ain't hear you.
What action would you guys take if you notice that your attempts at making people aware to try to stop them using Delta 8 isn't working?
She said, what actions would you take if you see that your attempts wasn't working with them trying to use Delta 8, basically?
So, okay, I'll rephrase it and make sure I understand. So I'm a parent and I am influencing my child not to use it, but they continue to use it. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. How would I change that? Okay. Well, I think sometimes, as parents, and I can speak as a parent, that we have to also open up the dialogue to a larger group of individuals. So for young people as yourselves, you listen more to you listen more to your peers than you would the adults around you. So I think, one thing is to promote positive groups, positive friends that are doing positive things. That is a way because you follow what you see. So I think that is one of the influences of changing behaviors and habits. I would also say, just watching this information and listening, it definitely put an alert for me because when I saw all those red dots, they're around schools, they're around colleges, they're around, minority areas as well. As I was looking at that. So for me, it makes me to call an action to say, wait, I need to definitely talk to Dr. Ben a little bit more and create some support groups for our parents to understand the impact of what's happening and the difference between the THC and the marijuana. Because I think that's where it really starts, is educating the difference between the two. And medical marijuana, seeing it, that way, because that is definitely legalized in, various areas. But I would also say, for your peers, I have teenagers. So I understand they don't always want to come to mom and dad, for certain various conversations. They want to talk to people that they feel comfortable with. So even if it's not your peers, I know you may have adult friends, you may have adult siblings, you may have adult cousins. I definitely implore any youth, if you are experiencing something and you're going through something, reach out to those safe spaces that you have. You have coaches, police officers. There are a plethora of individuals that can provide support and resources. So I would say for, any of you, never stop because you don't see a change. Just keep knocking on that door and keep asking questions.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Duan, and I wanted to ask, what is your plan for like teens or adults who like illegal to get the Delta 8, but sell it to the younger people, or how some shops allow younger people to buy them? What do y'all plan or how to stop it?
Thank you very much. First of all, like talking about I'll start from talking about the shops that sell those things, the Delta 8 THC to teenagers, then I'll go to the adults who buy it and sell them. So, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to, after today's event, the next step will be the action steps. And so part of the action step that we have planned as a coalition is to engage the law enforcement agencies to look into compliance checks. Compliance checks, in effect, is, sending teenagers to some of these places, giving them money and seeing if they would be able to sell this to them without proper identification. And so if they sell them to the teenagers without proper identification, then, it's not good. And so there has to be consequences for that. And so we're going to initiate this, of course, in the city, in the county, to make sure that these people do not sell these products to the teenagers or do not even entice teenagers to buy these things. And, there's something like WCAD, Tobacco 21 policy that says that any child below the age of 21 should not have access to any of these things. So if you sell these things to them without proper identification, then, you have wronged them, and it's something that you have to face the consequences, right? And now, talking about the people, adults who buy these things to resell back to teenagers, is where they say information is power, information is strength. So now we have to educate the teenagers to understand what this is all about, to understand that, the brain does not finish developing until the age of 25, to understand the effect or the impact of what they are getting on themselves and on their future, so that they will be able to, on their own, say, no, we don't want this thing. They will be able to say, this is not good for me, this is not good for my health, for my future, right? And so that is where providing information, is necessary. We're also going to provide support, so that if you have any question like you're asking, you have the right person to ask these questions, so that you will be informed. You would have information. Information is power, right? And also, in schools, because I know that sometimes they sell these things in schools in where we call hotspots and things like that. We are going to increase vigilance. And this is where we partner with the schools to increase vigilance, to ensure that these people who get these things and come to schools or wherever they sell them back to teenagers, they are not able to do that, so that they are apprehended and they face the consequences. So there's a lot of things to be done, right? But I believe that, we are in the right place, the right time. And like I said, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. And this is the right step. And together, and having youths like you who are asking the right question, and getting the information, you also have to go back to your friends, to your families, to also educate them so that they understand. So if people are trying to sell these things to you teenagers, you would say no, and not just say no, you report the person so that, the person can face the consequence. So it's something that we all have to do together as a community to be able to fight this, because, it's just not something you can do alone. One tree cannot make a forest. Thank you.
Before we end our panel, we'd like to get any comments from Dr. Sweeney or Ms. Clark. And I've noticed Dr. Sweeney has been really following this conversation and agreeing with everything that has been said. So could you give us your final thoughts along with Ms. Clark after you?
Sure, I would appreciate it. It's so heartwarming to hear the youth and their questions and their responses, and then the way that you've responded to them. I encourage your continued conversations. Love the suggestion of positive reinforcement and peer groups and activities that support young people in staying together and being healthy and doing things that are fun and engaging that don't involve substances. And also, you can be the biggest and best advocates for policy change in your community, along with your adult peer or counterparts here that are here to support you, by getting to your city council, by going to the various entities to help change policy to not allow these substances to be sold in your local gas stations and liquor stores and convenience stores right in your neighborhood. And that's one of the biggest concerns that we all have right now. And then Christina, if you want to go ahead and share any more. Again, congratulations on your initial effort. So happy that CADCA could be a part of it. We have some tremendous information that we're finding out about ways that you can advocate for policy change and change right there in your community to stop these things, nip them in the bud before they become overrun in your community. Like you said, all those little red dots are all over already, and you can try and minimize them.
Thank you so much. Ms. Clark?
Yes, I just to go with what Dr. Joy Sweeney said, you guys are amazing. You're one step ahead just by having this conversation. And I love the young lady who asked, what can youth do? And my simple answer is absolutely everything. You guys have already talked right here about all the different ways that you can combat this, from how can we get it out of their hands? How can we hold retailers accountable? How can we change outlet density, making sure it's not near our schools, and that, as your leader said, that it's not being advertised and that we're putting it behind the counter so it stays in their hand. But the people who can make that happen when it comes to policy change, so it truly is making a difference, is hearing from our young people. We know better than anyone else, when you guys show up to those commissioner meetings, to those council meetings, adults listen. And so we absolutely need that voice, and for you guys to be engaged and empowered to make a difference in this, because we need you. We need you in your community, but we also need you in the state and across the U.S. as we really try to make a change with Delta 8 in our community. So thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you do great things in your community.
Thank you so much. Can we get a big round of applause for all of our panelists, please? I want to thank you all so much for participating in tonight's discussion. Please be sure to visit the Coalition's table in the back to further discuss how to get involved to combat this rising concern. At this time, I'd like to turn this over to Casey Fisher for a few announcements of upcoming community events. Fisher?
Thank you so much, Ms. Kathy. Before I make the announcements, if we can just take a moment to give a hand of applause for all the students that participated this evening. Thank you. We have a small representation here, but before we got started, we actually had a forum with the youth specifically, and we had our goal was 15. We had about 18 to 20 students to stay and have some conversations with us. And one more thing before I give final announcements, I'll be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Mr. Vernon Rawls, who is in the space tonight, who works with the H.O.P.E Coalition and Exclusive Services that allowed us this partnership. If he can come up just very quickly and leave us with a few words.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Vernon Rawls. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Exclusive Services. I want to thank everybody for coming out. You could all be doing something different instead of sharing this time and space with us. A special thanks to Dr. Sweeney, Ms. Clark. We really thank you guys. You gave some great information. On behalf of the H.O.P.E Coalition, I just want to say that we are taking a very proactive approach to this problem. We realize it is an ongoing problem, and we've been collecting data trying to combat this before it becomes epidemic proportions. Two things that we are definitely going to do to combat this problem is, one, the education piece. I know Abdul had made some comments about sharing and being a peer support with Exclusive Services, as well as he is going to head the peer portion of the H.O.P.E Coalition. So big ups to Abdul Muhammad. This thing has to start at home. Abdul has several siblings at home, so a lot of the information I'm certain that he gets from us, from Dr. Ben, and from me, he takes home and he shares it with his younger siblings, which gives them more than a fighting chance to not succumb to some of these issues related to Delta 8 and some of the other drugs out there. Secondly is we definitely want to diminish some of the ease of access. This Delta 8 product is everywhere. We have some products that we purchase personally for the H.O.P.E Coalition, and I think Dr. Ben can probably back me up in this sense, and we were totally surprised at how easy it was to come by these products. And they are definitely packaged to attract children. I think one of the packages we had had cartoon characters on it, and it was dressed up like Captain Crunch. So easy to mistake this from regular candy or regular breakfast cereal, so on and so forth. So I want to, again, thank everybody for coming out. Definitely want to thank our youth. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. This is all for you. It's prevention, and we call it prevention for a reason. That means we want to get out in front of this thing before it becomes a problem for you young people. So Thank you, Casey Fisher and the Cincinnati Public School System.
Thank you. And Vernon just reminded me of something, and I keep saying before the announcement, but Dr. Ben, can you bring that box up with you really quick so we can get a close-up in this camera? I know that Ms. Krista did share in her slides some of the products, but can you just take a few items out very quickly that we can hold up? And I think this is the one he was talking about here. We can hold up. Can you hold this one too? We can get close up. This is what these products look like. So they look much like our everyday products. And, you know, if you're not wise, if you're none the wiser, then you can pick this up and, you know, become very ill. And we want to make sure that our youth know and understand the difference and that we are educated so that we can support and advocate for their health. Thank you, Dr. Ben. So a few closing announcements, community announcements that I have are My Kids organization that does a lot of work in the community, especially for the benefit of the Cincinnati Public School students. They have their 9th annual toy drop right here at Woodward High School on Saturday, December 11th. So if you would like to donate some toys for our youth, please make sure you drop by Saturday, December 11th here at Woodward High School. That's 7005 Reading Road. And that's the My Kids organization under the leadership of Dr. Carolyn and Rick Bates that do that work with Cincinnati Public Schools. Also, now through December 10th, if you would like to participate in the Project Connect gift card drive, you can drop off a gift card for our students that are experiencing, our families that are experiencing homelessness. Please, if you have time to donate a gift card to them for the holidays, a loaded gift card. If you'd like more information or where to drop that off, you can dial 363-6570. Again, that is 363-6570. And then lastly, Cheviot Elementary has their annual holiday gift giveaway. So that is happening again at Cheviot Elementary School on Friday, December 17th from 4 to 6 p.m. Friday, December 17th from 4 to 6 p.m. And if you would like more information, please contact Cheviot Elementary School. I do apologize, I do not have the number on hand, but please call the resource coordinator there, Mr. Anyango Collier, and he can give you some more information for that holiday gift giveaway. Thank you again, everyone, for participating this evening and making sure that we equipped our students, family, and the community with the education and information necessary to have successful students. Thank you.